Welcome to our Bucky call for January, February, March 3rd or 5th, March 4th or 5th, depending on which continent you're on. And we're doing Grunch of the Giants, continuing our conversation with Grunch of the Giants. Manu, how are you feeling this morning, and what do you expect to get from the call?
Just up a few minutes ago. I feel good. Nice that Julián and Anna are here today. The five musketeers, are ready to rumble, with the Grunch of Giants. And I expect that we continue and that we see all of those applications that are relevant today, and that it helps us, kind of formulating, not only formulating, but actually understanding what's going on today and contributing, if we can, to better live. That's what I expect. And how do you feel? What do you expect?
Thank you, Manu. Yeah, well, that was a really good wake-up morning music, yeah, Steve. And thank you so much for sharing that part of you. Yes, I do like rock, yeah. Okay, wow. So and those, yeah, I'm not that far behind. So looking forward, I was quite upset I missed last week, yeah. More because I just didn't realize it was Sunday with the event going on. But looking forward to the Grunch, and I just want to put it out there that one of the things we talked about 2 weeks ago, putting in the insurance protectors and the military. I think we have that one, protectors. And the military, they're all grunches. This Grunch of Giants, yeah, that's what they are. And that was how it all started back then, and it just grew, and they're still around, and we are still all. What really bums me is that this is something that we all have to do in our lives, and we're in this whole. It's like you can't do without them, and there's nothing we can much do about it. The way the world is going. So it really bums me there. Okay. So, but looking forward to getting, to Bucky's solutions so that we have some idea what to do about it. So, Julián, good to see you. Very, very happy to see you. We've been meeting on Thursday nights, but happy to see you back here. So how do you feel, and what would you like to take away today?
Thank you very much, Anne, and glad to talk to you, see your faces also, everyone. Excited to be back on here. It's been some difficult, busy weekends lastly, so I'm trying to catch up with you with Grunch of Giants. I started the first pages, and now I don't know how far you are, but for sure you have been doing some great discoveries from there. So what I'm expecting today is actually to listen a lot, I believe, because I think that many of the things that Bucky is showing us, we can leverage in ourselves in different ways. So I'm expecting that some kind of those insights are going to help me with my work, my projects, and in that way, as Anne was saying, like finding a solution to those problems from the Bucky's perspective. So with that in mind, let's go with John. John, how do you feel? What do you expect to take away from this call?
Thanks, Julián. I'm feeling great. Beautiful morning here in Perth. I've been out walking by the river, been lovely. And I finished last week's session a little depressed because what Bucky was writing 40 years ago was only worse now, the same problem, but bigger. What were the figures? I think the US federal debt in 1982 was about trillion. And it was 30 plus trillion now. So the problem hasn't got better, it's got a lot worse in the 40 years, basically, just over 40 years since Bucky was writing The Grunch of Giants. So I'd like to learn a little bit more, absorb some more Bucky, understand it, better equip myself to live in this strange world we live in. And yeah, just glad to be here with you all today. So, Manu, yes, Manu.
I'm sorry, Manu already went.
That's right. Yeah, so Manu, so
yeah.
And did you go?
Yes, I did. Steve,
Everybody's gone except you, Steve. Steve, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of threw everything off by doing that little ad lib thing at the beginning. It kind
The
of
entertainment, yes.
kind of put us all off on edge a little bit. Even I got confused there about Manu for a second. Well, I'm with you guys about leaving the call last week. And really, John, it doesn't matter if it was 1 billion or 1 trillion, which is, you know, 1,000,000 billion is a trillion or something, or 1,000 billion. But whatever it was, it went from that number to 34 trillion. I mean, wow. I mean, that's just beyond imagination. You know, underlying all this, I think that I think there's hope, and I think the hope is in each individual. And I'm not just saying this because Anne's on the call, but I think that, you know, what Anne's doing with her school is teaching people to like engage with whatever reality you have and engage at a way that works for other people around you and therefore works for you. You know, I think that is I think there's hope. There are people right now who live on the internet and they make money doing video games on the internet and they don't engage with the real world at all. And somehow I think it's very possible that the real world, all those giants that are grunching out there, could almost make themselves irrelevant, just because I'm living my life with integrity and supporting the people that are around me in some way. I don't know. It's kind of magical, but I think there's hope, and I'm inspired by Viktor Frankl's book, you know, A Man's Search for Meaning. The idea that no matter how bad it gets out there, I still can be a viable human being in here. And sorry for the editorialization, but there we go. And but we're going to continue with Grunch of Giants and just see what else we can learn. We're starting with chapter 5 this week, and here we go. Here we go. Okay, John, can we enroll you again?
Yep.
All right, really good.
So we're starting. The supranationals have now completely forsaken their leadership in the once upon a long ago time. Pro-humanity industrial mass production gained exclusively through individual inventive ingenuity, integrity and local community pride in producing only the best possible products, as does Japan today. Such was the leadership of Henry Ford Sr., who was inspired to mass produce no-frills, reliable motor vehicles for the lowest possible prices, primarily to help the farmer get to market. That his activity involved large amounts of money was only incidental. It was obvious to Ford that a prudent amount of earnings must be set aside to buy ever-improving equipment. Also, he determined that a safety factor surplus be set aside against poor economic days. Ford's enterprise was never to make money. At enormous expense, he bought back all the shares in his Ford Motor Company from his original backers, whom he found were primarily interested in making money. Henry Sr. fought JP Morgan for many years as to which it should be, make sense or make money, which are mutually exclusive. Ford's son and grandson failed to understand old Henry's inspirational philosophy of real wealth producing and learned to play only the game of money making with the money they inherited. It is the strategic prerogative of the invisible corporate giant to unilaterally and arbitrarily alter the scoring values in the economic game of earning a living versus either winning a living or tricking a living. The corporate colossus alters the scoring values by increasing prices to ensure that the industrial game will always be won only by the richest. It is reminiscent of the following incident of my boyhood. Amongst the neighborhood.
Let's pause right there before we get to the incident of boyhood. Any comments or questions on this? Earning a living versus winning a living or tricking a living. Any comments on that? I have a comment on it if nobody else does. It seems that in America, most Americans vote against their own interests most of the time, which boggles my mind. It's like we have this brass ring mentality. We're on this merry-go-round. It's going around and around and around. And then back in the old days, there used to be this brass ring before merry-go-round people worried about getting sued for people losing their fingers or arms. There'd be this brass ring that as you came around on the outside horse, you could reach out and grab the brass ring. And if you got the brass ring, you got a free ride. And it seems like that Americans are caught up in the brass ring syndrome, what I call the brass ring syndrome. It's like, well, you know, this sucks and I'm not living my life with integrity, but I'm going to go through this. I'm going to make $1 million and then I'm going to help somebody. It seems to me that a lot of my friends, and they're trapped in that, I'm going to make $1 million before I can help somebody. And it seems to me that really helping somebody doesn't take $1 million. It takes going to the homeless shelter on the weekend, or it takes buying from the right vendors, and it takes eating the right food, and it takes somehow creating an ethical value in my life and then sticking to that value. And it's not that simple either, but that's at least one thing. Any other comments on what we've read so far?
Yeah, yesterday I was for the past 2 days I was at this Women's Economic Forum that was organized in KL, and the young people, because I deal a lot with those in their 30s and all that, and most of them are already choosing what they want to buy, who they want to buy from, the values that the companies are standing for. And one of them said about 70% of his clothing is already from ethically, produced, manufacture companies. So as we move forward, more and more of them are going to be choosing to do that. So they're already choosing that. So it's just a matter of time before, like earlier on, you said that it might be the online space is going to force the world to big changes that it needs to make, unless the big boys come in and like what they do with greenwashing, like looks like they're green but they're not really. But beyond that, I think the young people today are already making their voices heard in the choices that they make. So I think, that's what I have to say.
Cool. Any other comments? Any other thoughts or questions?
I have just one small comment that my personal finances mentor taught me about. If you're going to give some money from your income, like a percentage, if you expect that when you have more money, you're going to be willing to give more money, that's not going to be true. If you want to give more money, even when you have a little amount of money, then when you have more, you're going to give more. But if you don't give when you have little money, you probably won't give when you have more. I agree with you guys.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Chinese. The Chinese, yes, they will make it rich, but many of them, because of the type of businesses they're in, to buy back good karma, they literally have to give a lot to buy back good karma. So many of them do that for that reason, because by that time many of them would have been in their late 50s, 60s, and they start to do that. Because this is going to be published as well, like those in the horse racing and gambling businesses, they have to do a lot to gain back good karma. Yeah. The Chinese, they believe that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think,
Go ahead, Manu.
I think the biggest illustration of it today is the monetary game and inflation. That's what it is. How money are substituted for everything, and the money supply is strict. Doesn't correspond to anything anymore, and the consequence of it is the real inflation that we have, that is really galloping everywhere in the world, as observed by the precipitous decline of the real purchasing power of people, ordinary people, and most people in the society, and the tricking of a game for the concentration of the buying power, the economic power in the hands of essentially financial institutions.
Cool. Well, and then we've seen the advent of microlending, which has been a real boon to entrepreneurs everywhere. That's been something that's come along. So, okay, let's continue from amongst. This is a boyhood experience of Bucky. So,
amongst the neighborhood boys of my childhood was one whose family was very rich and had bought him a set of baseball bats, balls, gloves, mitts, and other equipment, such as catcher's masks, base cushions, pneumatic catcher's belly protector, home plate, that is the equipment for an entire team. Finding a suitable neighbourhood field, he would attract a crowd of us. Eager to play, resplendent in his baseball uniform, he would announce the rules of baseball as we were to play it if we wanted to use his equipment. When, however, his side or he himself began to lose or play poorly, he would change the rules, making his side's just scored runs worth 5 of the earlier runs. If his rule switching became unacceptable to the rest of us, as it often did, he would pick up all the playing gear, put it in his pony cart and drive away. Here is another example. In between the halves of an end-of-season championship professional football game, the home team's super rich and powerful owners, finding their team 3 touchdowns behind the visitors, convene an effective quorum of the league's team owners present. Using various economic wrist-twisting tactics, they persuade a carrying majority of the owners to vote that henceforth, until further notice, touchdowns are to be scored 30 points each, including the 1 touchdown just made by the home team. As the final scoreboard reads 30-21 in favour of the home team, it is easy to imagine not only the consternation of the public over such unfair tactics, but the public's outright rejection of such on-the-spot unilateral value changing. This, however, is all there is to the phenomenon known as unilateral price advancing, which is solely responsible for inflation. The president of US Steel Corporation says, the price of US steel is now advanced $10 per tonne. The president of the United States says, Mr. US Steel, you can't do that. The president of US Steel replies, not only can I, but I already have. And that's that, Mr. President, over and out, clonk. Individual corporations within the economic power structure bring about inflation through unilateral price advancing. About the reasonableness of which unilateral score changing, the corporate greats use their media ownership to educate the public. They claim their price increase has been brought about.
I'm so sorry. I'm trying to keep ahead. And here we go.
They claim their price increase has been brought about by aggravating cost increases within their particular industry, as well as by foreign competition, ergo, by evolutionary events beyond the price increasing management's control. To avoid antitrust action, The price increases are done by the great industrial corporations independently, one by one. In order to understand the economics events transpiring in 1981, we must comprehend the rudiments of the financial securities world. The abstract being, corporation, operating within the United States, receives legal authority from state and city governments to sell common shares in outright risk ventures, to which common shareholders they promise only proportional sharing of cash profits from their economically successful operation. But corporations also receive legal authority to sell preferred stocks, to the owners of which the corporation becomes legally obliged to pay a fixed annual rate of interest before distributing any of the profit to those corporations' common stockholders. If, however, the corporation has no annual profit, it has no obligation to pay interest to preferred stockholders. Preferred means first to be paid off at a fixed annual percentum rate out of net earnings, after which fixed percentum payoff, the common shareholders divide as much of the earned profit as the directors of the corporation feel can be distributed, while also taking care of new development expenses, as well as safety factor reserve funds set aside. If the corporate enterprise is to be liquidated, the preferred stockholders are to be paid off before the common stockholders. If the corporation fails, the preferred stockholder share in whatever equity may be left but not so the common shareholders. If the corporation fails and no assets remain, the preferred stockholders have no further legal recourse, that is, claiming rights. In addition to the common and preferred stocks, both of which are outright risk venture shares, corporations can raise initial working or expansion capital by issuing bonds, provided the corporation owns free and clear real wealth, that is, real estate or buildings, and easily saleable general machinery, such as machine tools, lathes, drill presses, etc., with which machinists produce special purpose mass production tools. The word real, of real wealth, of realty, developed from the Spanish word for royal or royalty. The king or queen personally acknowledged truth. Real is what the socio-economic power structure decrees it is. Real is, like the abstract legal entity corporation, a legally accepted fiction. Real estate equals royal estate. Bonds are called securities, and their value is predicated upon the degree of probability that upon public liquidation of a company, the real estate, buildings and machinery can be sold at the bond's face value or more. While corporate bonds have priority over preferred and common stocks when corporations are liquidated, fail or are sold, the bonds do not have priority of claim over those to whom the corporation is already indebted for goods, services, etc., nor do the bonds have priority over federal, state or municipal taxes. Bond owners have no share in the earnings of the corporation, but do have fixed interest priority over preferred stocks. It's relevant to our understanding of securities to note that bonds other than those of tax-guaranteed federal, state, county and municipal bonds have often proven to be less than secure. For instance, approximately all the railroad company bonds of the USA were defaulted, that is, became 100% unredeemable in the economic depression of 1929 to 1933 and thenceforth. Within the United States of North America, the right to incorporate is legally obtainable only from state governments and not from federal nor city, town or county governments. If, however, corporation promoters wish to sell shares worth more than $300,000 for capital expenditure before earnings, then the federal government's Securities and Exchange Commission must also give its approval. Some states in the United States grant incorporation rights that are more workingly satisfactory to a given type of enterprise than the privilege granted to the incorporators by other states. Some states' incorporation privileges are extended to cover the corporation's operations in other states. Many states grant incorporation privileges only within their own borders. In addition to the securities issued by corporations or by non-incorporated companies or partnerships, Bonds are issued by towns, counties, cities, states, the federal government and multi-state authorities. Federal, state, county and city municipal bonds have face-declared maturity dates and clearly scheduled tax collection commitments to cover both the yearly interest rates and the maturity repayments to the bondholder. All such government bonds have prior right to funds produced by taxes. In the world of securities, properties represented by written documents that are legally recognised forms of negotiable monetary investments, there are also insurance policies, and in particular life insurance policies. Known in world history's earliest records as bottomry, what we now speak of as insurance dates back to its practice in 4000 BC Babylon as the underwriting of merchant ship voyages. This practice made it possible for wealthy individuals who were not shareholders in the original shipbuilding enterprise to participate at their own risk in the merchant ship venturing, which when successful was fabulously so. Historically, life insurance is a very recent form of the already wealthy humans and their corporations' capital gambling, and does not begin until the industrial era of the late 19th and early 20th century, when technology began to render humans' immediate physical environment more propitious for the protecting, support, and omni-accommodation of increasing numbers of humans, individuals, despite remote deviations occurring in the world's wilderness areas.
Any comments or questions so far here? He's going through a bunch of technical stuff.
But what he's saying in summary is the rich will always make the rules to benefit themselves.
Yeah. Good summary, John. Okay, let's go.
The technology of industrialization was first undertaken by the military, specifically intent on how to more accurately kill more and more people at ever greater distances in ever shorter periods of time. As a consequence, the technologically advanced 19th century weaponry witnessed greatly increased war-wrought devastation, leaving more and more wounded to die on the battlefields. The medical world, being as yet inexperienced and ignorant, the US Civil War saw the highest ratio of deaths per battlefield committed soldiers in all history. Due to medical ignorance, the US Civil War also saw more wounded left unattended to die on the battlefield than in all other wars of known history. When the US entered World War I in 1917, it was asked by the British to replace all the line of supply ships the British had lost to German submarines, and simultaneously to bring the US Navy to parity with that of the British, while also training, arming, transporting a Navy escorting 1 million soldiers across the German submarine-infested Atlantic to the battlefields of France. When the numbers of US troops killed and wounded in World War I battling reached unprecedented numbers, the US Congress was confronted with the enormous cost of training, arming and transatlantic replacing of their skilled and wounded troops in France. The US Congress was then informed of an alternative solution to the replacement problem. The US medical scientists informed the US Congress of the potential ability to save and repair the wounded US soldiers in France, provided enough money was appropriated for a known to be possible vast advancement in medical science, drugs, equipment, and practice. The cost of this capital investment in medical science, though historically unprecedented, was far less than the cost of entirely new troop replacements from the US. Convinced of these facts, the US Congress appropriated the funds for the medical science solution of its problems. It worked. When the war was over and the saving and rehabilitation of vast numbers of veterans was realised, the new era medical establishment was not disbanded. Enthusiastically supported by citizens in general, scientific medicines refocused its attention on the US home front. One after another, the immediately fatal and incurable diseases, lethal conditions of yesterday, came swiftly under complete control. Medical information regarding further curing and effective anticipatory avoidances was enormously expanded in the late 1920s. It was discovered in the late 1920s that the area of highest mortality was the period of childbirth and its first ensuing 4 years. This brought successful coping with these initial years' fatalities into general effectiveness in the 1930s. The seemingly population explosion after World War II was due, in fact, not to a post-war increase in the birth rate, whose small rise in the US lasted for only 2 years, but to the coming of visible age of those who used to die but did not now hereafter die in the womb or at birth or within their first 4 years in the 1930s, as had those conceived or born before the 1930s, together with the subsequent escapees of the pre-1930s childhood mortalities. There is no scientifically accredited manifest of an alteration in the extreme limit magnitude of human lifespan throughout all recorded history. There are many claims and assertions of great longevity, but 113 years is the greatest span possibly known to exist. It's now 118. 113 years is the terminal norm of human life. How many attain their potential longevity is another matter. Few do. However, the number of those who do is now increasing. Quite clearly, the ability to substitute plastic bones and mechanical hearts, etc., suggests that we may have entirely inanimate physical human mechanisms, proving what we have contended from the beginning to be true, that whatever it may be, life is not the physical equipment that it employs anymore as the telephone or any other of the integral or detached tools that life employs.
Sorry.
That's right.
Wow, what just happened?
You went way back.
Yeah, it didn't, and I was pressing hang on.
So I
Any
jumped
comments or
over.
questions at this point while I'm finding this place?
It's interesting that it was only because of the war that money was devoted to medical research and advancement, without which we'd have a much higher death rate.
Right. And I think the US actually is like, right now currently, is 5th or 6th in the world in terms of, infant mortality. We used to be like, had the lowest infant mortality, and now we're down to 5 or 6. There are other countries that are kicking our butts in that regard. Let me see, we already read this one, right? Incorporate legally. Yeah, we
Yes,
read
yes.
that.
Yes, we read all this.
Bottomry, we already been through that.
Yep.
And we've been through that.
Yep.
Here's the US medical investments. Did we read there's no scientifically accredited manifest on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Despite many dramatically negative side effects.
No, we didn't. So the paragraph we're up to is the one beginning, despite many dramatically negative side effects.
Okay.
So despite many dramatically negative side effects and feedbacks, 20th century technology has rendered the everyday physical environments in the US and elsewhere ever more favourable to human life. This has greatly increased the realised lifespan, as well as the physique of Americans and others living under the same technological improvements of the environment. In the years between World War I and World War II, the average height of American males increased 4 inches. A popular 1900 song said, $1 a day is a very good pay when you work on the boulevard. $2.50 per 14-hour day was the pay for my first pre-World War I job in New York City with one of the great meat packing companies. $15 a week, $880 a year, and I was able to live happily but frugally on it. I was married in 1917, and as an ensign in the US Navy, in the US Navy's European War Zone duty, I was receiving $1,800 a year. The younger you are, the more attractively low are the annual rates of payment for maintaining each $1,000 worth of life insurance policy. In 1971, I figured out that if, when I died, my life insurance policy would give my wife a capital sum of $50,000, She could deposit that sum in a savings bank. She would then receive a 4% annual interest payment of $2,000, which would be $200 more per year than had been our US Navy ensign's pay. She would have only one or two to look out for, so that she should be able to save and add to the principal deposited in the savings bank. According to their advertising, the savings bank would continually compound the interest on the deposited amount. That was the economic picture presented to me in 1917 by the so-called honest businesses and the deeply respected banking world. Prudential Life Insurance Company depicted itself as the secure as the Rock of Gibraltar. So I bought $50,000 worth of life policies. For my World War I zone activity of 18 months,
Duration.
yeah, I was given a bonus of a fully paid $5,000 of life insurance payable to my heirs at my death. The life insurance company's sales talk failed to anticipate the great deflation of the individual's dollars brought about by money-making businesses' greed, increasing the price of products and services, whose physical costs were technologically ever decreasing. A third of a century later, my annual cost of living at a level which permitted me to travel, to give lectures and to design and physically produce improved mass production prototypes of living artifacts reached my 1917 assumed total live on its interest capital equity of 50,000, being completely spent each year. I sold my life insurance policies to the life insurance companies for their then accrued cash value of $22,000. This bought me the time to develop the geodesic domes. So what he's saying is insurance is not a good idea.
Yeah.
Today, as yet living in the same manner while doing the work essential to following through on my life commitment to solve socio-economic problems exclusively by invention and development of artifacts instead of by politics, my annual cost of operation has reached $300,000 for servicing my commitment to problem solving only by artifacts with no savings accruing whatsoever. Because I am not a business or a corporation, my gross intake is rated as personal income, and I'm therefore in the 50% tax bracket, which precludes my saving any of the income should I wish to, which I fortunately do not, though I'm convinced that I'm getting more for humanity with the dollar I spend than is any form of tax-supported government expenditure. Each of the three Dymaxion three-wheel front-drive rear-steered cars built by me in the depths of the 1930s depression cost $28,000 or $84,000 in all. Today, they would cost me 20 times as much for the same vehicles built with the same materials.
Comments or questions? He just seems to be talking about the state of affairs there. Anything else?
Well, I would just say that each of those paragraphs merit a whole discussion each, because problems that is raising there are fundamental problems, yet elusive to the common man today. People don't know. They still fall prey of the same things. So we're reading and going. My comment would be that, they require more comment and more time spent on them in order to be able to help people grasp what the depth of what he's saying there.
Agreed.
I mean, he's talking about all the monetary problems that we have today, inflation, talking about corporate structure, talking about all the scams we've gone through, talking about how really what portfolio do you build for your life, what type, and things like that. And how do you go about your life into making it in such a way that, you can realize the potential for which you were placed on this earth in the first place. So there is so much that can be discussed. And I saw here in the filigrane of everything that's been said, the type 1 and type 2 evolution that Susan we discussed some time ago.
Yeah, he does oversimplify inflation quite a bit. It isn't just people charging more money for products, although that's a consistent issue. Because even when gas profits are high, prices don't come down, they don't come down at the tank. Businesses seem to take advantage that people are used to paying a certain amount of money for something, and when they can make a profit on it, they do, and everybody's left to pay the higher price. So this idea of, and he's mentioned this in the theme, as Manu kind of points out, that even though businesses ephemeralize and make things at lower and lower, make things better with lower prices, the profit seems to go to the corporation. Somehow we haven't figured out how to say, oh, we can produce things cheaper now, so let's lower the price. I mean, we do indirectly because we have dollar stores in America, and I'm sure you guys have dollar stores there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so things are made in third world countries, and they're being sold for $15 at Target, and they're being sold for $1.25 at the dollar store. I don't know. Kind of crazy. So
we had an article in yesterday's paper here in Perth, pointing out the problems we've got in the housing industry, because during COVID, the federal government contributed money to enable young couples to buy homes, and the state government in Western Australia also contributed money. All it did was increase the money supply without increasing the materials or labour, which just pushed the price of houses up, led to shoddy workmanship, unfinished houses. So it's actually created an economic mess.
Yeah.
Because just tipping more money in to generate activity without the labour and the materials to meet the demand just pushes the price up.
Yeah. When I was
down the quality.
When I was a real estate agent back in 1980, 79, somewhere in there, 78, the FHA, Federal Housing Administration in America, had a limit on low-income home purchases to use their funding of $17,250. Act of Congress raised that to $21,500, and immediately I had 4 homes that were listed at $17,500 were immediately listed at $21,500.
Of course they were.
Yeah, because people could qualify for that financing. I mean, things, wow.
And what you say, Steve, you say because people could qualify, that was by decree.
Yeah.
There was no proof that people could really qualify for that. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The authorities raising a ceiling or a limit does not mean that it is reality. It can just be fiction of people sitting completely aloof of the real problems that people are facing.
Yeah.
And I would like also, on this, I don't know if we read Boastfully Ethical. Yes, we did. But look at what it means. If you were, and compare that to what has happened even to the dollar, the mighty dollar, between 1971 and today. What has happened to the dollar? Lost 97% of its initial value. I'm talking about the petrol dollars today has lost 97% of its real purchasing value. And that's what Bucky is saying there. Boastfully ethical big business and banking have reduced my necessitous and desirable acquiring capability by 95%. That is, they are priced and otherwise manipulated the money game in such a way that $95 out of every $100 I've earned has been taken away. You remember the earn a living versus a tricking a living.
Or winning a living.
Yeah. I will
so
just
actually
say
tricking, it's not, I don't think that's all, John. It is earning, that is, there is exchange between a value that you employ and produce and the tricking, that is the chipping of a coin, of a gold coin, to put silver, to put a copper or something else away and pretending nominally that it's the same, whereas in reality, is being eroded, and people are not aware of it.
Yeah. I will say that on that FHA program back in '79, those are full doc loans. It was later on in the '80s when they came up with the no doc and stated income loans. But back under this particular program, it was fully documented income. You had to prove, you had to have W-2 forms, or you had to have tax returns to prove that you made the money for those programs, just as a way of fact. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I would like to say something. I am reading like the paragraphs we have just read, 15, 20 minutes maybe, kind of shows me an objective perspective of what has happened in the recent history, in economics, in the war, in the innovations, developments, in how the humanity has been adapting to that. And I'm thinking that many of these things that we are reading about were not predictable. Like, it's not easy for anyone living in 1900 will have predicted World War I, World War II in the way that it happened. Someone in 1920s wouldn't predict the economics, all of the catastrophes that happen in the economics. And right now, I'm thinking that there are many things that are changing even faster. And there's more and more things that we are not going to be able to predict, like technology is not able to be something to predict. And for example, I remember I took a note here about how the average American increased 4 inches in height after the World War II, I believe it was, both World Wars. And I'm thinking like, okay, that was something that we could see, like you can measure, take a tape and measure those 4 inches in average. But right now we are doing so much time into information era. Like, what are those other things that we cannot measure that easily that we have evolved? So
Emotional well-being for a start.
for example, that's one. And yet we have so many things that we don't know how to deal with. Even though, as Manu was saying, like if we don't know this, then we're content. I believe it was Manu, to repeat ourselves because we don't are not aware of these, like the life insurance. I have my opinion on life insurance and all of that, but even though it's like taking money on something that you don't like that fear of not having a life, like that's something that you can make money out of. So I think many of these, like looking at this in a global perspective, it's making me realize that there are many things that right now we don't know are going to happen. But if we are aware of like the fundamentals of why humans make these kind of choices, it's probably it is a possibility that we have a better chance to overcome those things instead of abstracting from reality and not taking this into consideration. That's my thoughts right now, like in a summary, in an overview.
Cool. Any other comments or questions?
I think history is called history because things always repeat.
Mhm.
What we don't know is the cycle of repeat. We don't know what frequency is going to repeat. But the reality is that long enough, you go back, you see that things that happen today happened before under different circumstances, but driven by the same principles.
Driven by the same
So
principles.
if you are a student of history, that is already a big advantage into helping you, as Julián said, to understand the principle that are, undergirding all of the evolution.
True. True. And like we are going to evolve, like as the history has shown, like the environment is going to change and we are going to adapt to that environment, and that's how things have been going for many years. So that's also, we can, like then how is that said, like the impermanence, that's something that we cannot, the only thing that doesn't change is change itself.
Cool. You ready to read?
Interesting.
Okay. Do you remember where you are, John?
Yes,
Good.
we just finished, I think, we read about the Dymaxion three-wheeled front drive rear steered cars. I think we're up to we'd read Boastfully Ethical Big Business.
Sure.
Or did Manu just read that? Anyway, that is, they've priced and otherwise manipulated the money game in such a way that $95 out of every $100 I've earned has been taken away. So I think we start, life insurance companies bet that humanity is going to live longer than it expects. Those who buy life insurance are betting they're going to live shorter than the insurance company thinks they're going to live. The life insurance companies invented the term expectancy of probability to be realised, longevity of specific classes of humans existing under various environmental conditions, in contradistinction to the now workingly assumed unvarying maximum limit of 113 years for all people. Now, I happen to know, it's a gratuitous piece of information, but in the year 1900, the average life expectancy of a male in Perth was 42 years.
Wow.
That's 1900, so that's 123 years ago, and it's just about doubled in that time.
Can we make, can I make an observation at this point, or do we read first?
Make an observation.
Okay. Look at this. Who are in the field of play here? The insurance company and the individual. Life insurance companies, they decide on a rule of games that are, they are determining through expectancy. So that's the way they sell their products. But who's got the data to be able to gauge that expectancy better than others? In other words, you don't have a level field of play. You have on the one side the corporation, life insurance company, that has an army of valuers of how do you call them?
Yep.
That are able to build sophisticated models and determine something, that is better accurate than you. You are the individual that is ignorant. And yet you are sold a product based on that. And the life insurance company job is to maximize their income, is to have the value accreted flowing to them. How can the game be fair? I'm not talking about any legal stuff. I'm just saying in the field, it's like taking a major field, a major league team or professional to play a game with kindergarten guys who don't even know the rules.
But Manu, that's what Bucky is saying is happening in the world. That's about the Grunch of Giants. The giants have all the advantages. They've got the money, they control governments, they have the resources. I mean, look, if I go to the races and I bet, the odds are that I will lose. The bookmakers know the odds, they calculate it so that at the end of the day, they're going to win. And most of the time they do. And you actually have to work for a bookmaker to be able to place a winning bet. I may win one or two. I go to the casino, they've got the odds worked out. I'm unlikely to come out ahead over time because they've done their homework. They don't stay in business otherwise. However, I'll give you insurance as an example. Insurance can be worthwhile, even if the odds are against you. Let's say I'm a young man with a wife and a young family and I've got a mortgage on my home. And I say, just in case I am killed in an accident, I don't want my family forced to sell the home and left with nothing. I will take out insurance for a period of time to protect my young family. That's insurance for a specific purpose. And even if I know the odds are against me, it's worth it for me to guarantee the position of my family. But most people buying insurance aren't informed. We had a banking royal commission in Australia some years ago, where it was discovered that banks and insurance companies were selling absolutely valueless insurance to people who were uninformed and uneducated, no idea what they were buying, right? And they were ordered to pay compensation. So, but even an ordinary insurance policy, normally, if you have it for a lifetime, the insurance company are going to collect more money over a number of policyholders than they're going to pay out. They're going to make a profit, otherwise they don't stay in business. The question is, how informed are the consumers and how ethical is the product? There is, I think, ethical insurance, which fills a need. I insure my car. I insure my car because I don't want to have an accident, but if I do, I want it replaced. I've had to draw on that insurance. I wrote off a car. I was very fortunate to have it insured. It was an expensive car. But how often is the purchaser well-informed and how often is the product ethical?
Right on.
That's a big part of the problem.
Okay, let's continue. I was going to say the same thing about insurance. You know, when I had a bunch of real estate, and I'm the only guy who knew how to manage it. If I died, I wanted that real estate to be paid off, so my family would inherit some free and clear asset rather than a bunch of management issues. And I used discretionary income to do that. It wasn't like it was a business decision, like you say, John. But you know, now as I look at this, well, yeah, and just like you got your car paid, so who actually paid for that car? So it was everybody else who was betting on the same thing you did. And is there a line where insurance is ethical on one side and not ethical on the other side? And so
I think so, yes.
Yeah, Bucky's bringing these questions up to me. So very cool. Any other comments or questions? Okay, let's continue then. I think we're right here at the top of the page. Are we?
Yes, I think so. I don't know what was on the page before, but we certainly haven't read this.
I think you finished it. So
okay, the overall history of humanity's attained longevity is one in respect of which the average individual's attained lifespan has progressively increased from a probable average expectancy of 19 years of age for the people of 5000 BC Egypt. At 16 years, Alexander the Great was the world's leading general. I didn't know that. To 70 years in AD 1980 USA. Though manifesting many setbacks, the overall evolutionary inexorable increase in longevity of those living within the technologically advancing environment is a product of humanity always gaining more experience and learning ever more from its errors of conceptioning and acting on how to cope more effectively and intelligently with the progression of natural exigencies. Humans gain despite enormous setbacks by industrial environment polluting. The insurance companies collect all possible vital statistics governing the probabilities of individual human survival under all the known controlling conditions. The insurance companies have large staffs of statisticians known as actuaries who, aided today by computers, are able ever more effectively to render the insurance corporation's stockholders' bets to be approximately sure things. In investing the insured's premiums today, they find IBM, DuPont, and other such stocks to be sure things, and tax-secured US government, state, county, and municipal bonds, the most risky of investments for reasons we will later examine. During the first 3 quarters of the 20th century, average life expectancy in the most favourable environmental countries is almost double. So I was just saying. When I was born in 1895, life expectancy for a male born in New England was 42 years of age. I said 42 in Perth in 1900. On July the 12th, 1933, I passed my expectancy day. On July 12, 1979, I completed my second lifetime or double expectancy. I am now in the 3rd year of my 3rd expectancy lifetime and am very healthy with a new stainless steel hip I have just acquired. That must have been one of the very earliest hip replacements. Wow. Okay, because that was 1982 he's talking about.
Yeah.
My 2 completed lifetimes and my 3rd of a 3rd lifetime have found the great majority of savvy, well-to-do individuals I have met convinced that there exists an inherent inadequacy of life support on planet Earth, and therefore that their own successful survival, as well as that of those whom they cherish, depends upon their cleverly learning more and more about how to be legally selfish and thereby to accomplish personal economic advantage by anticipatorily depriving others in directly undetectable ways. These ways are legally and socially accepted practices of deceiving and cheating the public, e.g. by altering the scoring system and the official game rules of the accrued monetary equities, the other humans, through zoning laws, etc., times 1,010 ways. Price manipulation is most often defended as being governed by supply and demand variables. That is, by what the traffic will bear and not by time energy costing, which science finds to be exclusively operative throughout all the constant energy transformings and interchangings of universe. This legal deprivation of other humans to one's own personal advantage is most simply accomplished through increasing rents or prices of a cup of coffee or a second-rate cigar, both of which have escalated during my lifetime from 5 cents to 50 cents. The powerful social precedent for price advancing has been initiated by non-perishable mine and oil well owners, and those are the prime industrial producers, the physical cost of whose products, measured in ergs of energy per hour and pounds of coal or petroleum per pound of manufactured goods, has steadily decreased.
I think Bucky is worth noticing 3 things there. The first is when Bucky says he's healthy, that's just a year before he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be relevant, but it's quite remarkable. And there's many stories about how he passed away,
Yeah.
with all of his agreement with his wife to die the same day. So
Yeah, he
he
allowed
passed
himself
away
to
to
die.
accompany his wife over. The second thing is he's talking about the type 1 evolution there, where you take as an example of his life that he's gone through, is at his 3rd life expectancy anniversary and is living well, but that has trick, that has not. You know, most of the individual, the wealthy especially, they think that really it is a game of they preserving theirs to be living to that age healthy to the detriment of the others. I'm talking about the paradigm of seeing things. That's the way.
The XY game, Manu, it's called the XY game.
Okay. And then the third is that our unit of measurement, when Bucky talks about decreasing costs of things, he's not talking about the dollar name cost. He's talking about energy that is effectively and actually employed to produce another energy that is used for for things. So input energy against output energy. Input energy is ever decreasing for, let's just say, the same output, or even better, for increasing output energy. That's what he's talking about. And many people are baffled and confused when they read the statistics that are presented to say, but Bucky, that's not what is happening. The reality is that what is happening is that we're producing more energy ever with less energy use. And that has to be really, on the line here for people to see that that's what he's talking about.
I think this issue of, because I brought this point up, that even though the cost to produce a thing goes down, the price, the selling price tends to go up if the thing is in demand. And Bucky complains that the pricing isn't based on cost to produce and a reasonable profit. It's just based on what the market, how stupid people are, or what the market will bear. We've seen escalation in prices on drugs. One guy in America was, I think they were trying to put him in jail because he just arbitrarily increased the price of a drug by 400% just because it was in demand and nobody else had drug or a generic of it. That's an issue as well. So it's complicated, I think, because there ought to be, I don't want to make a law that says that you have to limit your pricing. I know there was a big thing back in 20 years ago with rock and roll bands trying to limit the price of their concerts, and U2 lost a lot of money because they just weren't willing to charge $80 per person. And now it's cost $400 to go to a U2 concert. They've given up on that. And in fact, the cost of touring, some guys say that the only way to make money in music, because the royalty industry is so screwed up, and with free music from Spotify and everything, the only way to make money is to tour. And then I heard last year that bands that were touring, even they were charging $200 and $300 and $400 a ticket, weren't making any money. I mean, it's complicated out there.
But Steve, what I hear you saying is that I'm parachuted in the middle of a sea that is turbulent, and I have to make, rule that govern the sea. I think the issue is much more than that. If there's got to be any effectiveness, got to be at the source. And the source is where money is created, where money is concerned. Because once it leaves that source, then you can't control money. Let me be a little bit more precise. You gave the example of back 40 years ago with just a tweak or some legislators sitting and saying that, the minimum or the maximum or the bearable, whatever, of a product of a home was this. The homeland changed, and what you so-called market just adjusted to that.
Yeah.
Right? That is adjusted to the end derivative. You have to go back to the fundamental and see the thing today. What is the fight today? And to go to what Bucky is saying, is a money supply in the economies of the world, or to the world. Because that money is a unit of change in what is being expressing. And we're fighting the behind door supply of money in a way that our lives become meaningless in terms of the cost of living. So what has happened is, for example, the blockchain revolution or the blockchain technology. And the fight today is about the appropriation of that, because the central banks are saying that they are going to issue digital central bank currencies. And that means control. That defeats completely the why the essence of blockchain. Blockchain was supposed to be a distributed ledger that is encrypted in such a way that because distributed to everybody in the world and everybody can see, then it makes it very difficult to trick it.
A decentralized finance.
But if you centralize, if you give that technology to a central authority, then you give him that authority absolute power. They will be able to determine what you buy. They will issue, how do you call it, individualized specific currency for Steve. This currency is issued and given to Steve to buy that thing.
Well, that's already happening. That's already happening in
That
America.
is, this is a fundamental problem.
Yeah.
If we don't go back to the source of a problem and try to anchor again our currency of exchange, the individual is in trouble.
Yeah, we're already doing that with food stamps in America. I know people on food stamps that cannot buy supplements because they're not food. And so they're using their food stamps to buy processed crap food that's going to kill them. They're also, if you buy food that's been cooked, even though it's cheaper than what you would get on the rack or the same price, and the food is just, the store is offering it as a service, a free loss leader, you can't buy the chicken from Costco on food stamps because it's delicatessen, even though it's cheaper than the chicken you'd buy at any store. So they're already doing that, Manu. They're already limiting, and people are just buying, they're just going along with it. They're not thinking about it. But you're very right. All they have to do is say, well, we have digital currency now and you can't buy a Tesla. We're not allowing digital currency to go to Teslas, and blammo, Tesla's out of business because I have money that I earn.
More than that, last week we commented on what happened in Nigeria recently. The government changed the currency and nobody could get money from ATMs. When you force people to use, well, effectively, electronic banking is a digital currency. You don't have hard copy. I had the experience last night. I'll tell you about last night's experience, but we were talking about Nigeria. People couldn't get cash. They couldn't do business. They couldn't buy or sell product. Di and I last night after dinner went to a gelateria to buy gelato. And there was a long queue and something happened to their electronic banking. Everybody was paying with credit card and then there was a glitch and they couldn't take credit cards. And there's this long queue and people are waiting to place their orders. And they said, sorry, we can't take orders. We can't process credit card transactions. I pulled out a $20 bill and said, here's cash. I'll buy, thank you. Di and I jumped the queue, got our gelatos and left because we had cash.
Yeah.
You were prepared.
Yeah. I also have something just now because as all of you were sharing, it occurred to me that I'm going through something really right now that is not fitting into the regular system, and so it's making it really hard for us. You know how just now we were reading and Bucky was talking about how people were being paid. Yeah. So I right now we are actually working towards raising investments for that next stage of where we want to go, right? So organically we've grown it up to where we can, and even organically with our own internally generated funds from the business, right? So moving forward to grow it further and to be able to get this out to as many kids as possible, we're going to need the rocket fuel, which is investment funds. And I realized that we are falling, we don't fit into the more masculine, I would say. This is nothing to do with gender. There's nothing to do with gender. It's just the way the world is. That we don't fall into the parameters. Yeah, the parameters that what we have done in our company does not fit into the parameters of many investment groups, whether it's family funds or whatever funds you have out there, including the banks. So because there's one thing, okay, when I talk about that gender thingy, it's nothing to do with, but it's just that we are very slow to, to doing business, women. My generation is literally the first one that we could be anybody. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. Have I spoken about this?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you want it to be on the recording?
Oh, no, this one, no problem. Can have it recorded. Yeah. So my generation as female, right, in Malaysia, my generation is the first one that we can be anybody, including be business person, etc. However, when it comes to the business front, we are still a few hundred years behind. Yeah. And so the kind of businesses women go into are more related to us, right? Like education and childcare and fashion and food, including maybe like manicure, pedicure, looking at real estate, and maybe water filtration. So the thing right now is, because like I'm in education, if you're looking at the differences between the business that is available out there, like drone technology, how fast the company is able to grow, because when they add in big data, it jumped 10 times. And then when they added in AI, it jumped 10 times, because what they could do with drones just raised the revenue. Their revenue just went up because of what services they were offering. So my point is, doing now an education business as opposed to, let's say, drones, and if people were to invest, one is going to go faster than the other. So I realized it's so difficult to get investments. And then the second thing that we did was that we followed like accounting, the accounting processes, right? And everything that we created, when we invested into our next project, it was parked as expenses. So that became a negative for us, because it was expenses. It wasn't put as an investment. So number two, that was the problem I was facing. The third one is that how we are paying our people. It is such a horrible thing, because we chose to pay our teachers well, because I'm getting engineers and biomedical degree holders and nutritionists and accountants and lawyers and even medical doctors coming in to teach for us. I've got masters, PhDs. I think we have in total, majority of my people all have their degrees and their masters and PhD teaching. Oh, hi Joe, teaching children, right? So my mandate from the very beginning, the policy that we set was to pay our teachers well, so that they can earn a good living and so that they can also make choices for their families. But then, because my staff cost is higher than the norm, then now it also becomes an issue. So when people want to make decisions, like you're right, and Bucky is right, we should be paying the people who are working, right? Why do we want to wait until we make a lot of money? So we decide to make sure our people are properly compensated. But it's hard for us to get funding, I'm so, it's so frustrating.
I thought there were quite a few very successful Malaysian businesswomen in areas that were non-traditional. Do you know Datuk Masna has a major security company?
No.
My wife knows her. I've met her, but only just met her. My wife knows her. We were dealing with her in Malaysia 20 years ago. Had a huge business. I'm trying to think of the name of the business now, but it was a security business, armored cars, security. So there's a group of women, her friends, who one of them was the governor of Langkawi, I think.
Okay.
But they were very, very substantial, successful businesswomen in sort of non-traditional, such as teaching areas. And I thought that in Asia, Chinese women have kept their own names and their own money and often been successful in business for a long time, ahead of Western women.
Yeah, I get that. They're there, but many of them, the way the companies are, like, say, the kind of businesses they're in is very male-dominated, all right? successfully broken through. Like yesterday, I met this lady. Her name is Dame Wendy, and she got
Wendy Tan, Globe Engineering.
yes.
I know her. She's a personal friend.
Oh wow, she's in construction. Yeah.
Yeah. Engineering, Globe Engineering.
Yeah. That's right. I met her yesterday. So she broke
Lovely
through.
woman.
Yeah, but it's more the male-dominated industries, right? They broke through. But even then, when it comes to investments and things like this, they still follow. Because I met a couple of women investors, and so a lot of the things that they're looking for is very much the way people would invest. So it still comes from a very male-centric space. So I'm not talking that women cannot, right? But there are many who have been successful. But I got the statistics for Malaysia. Only less than 20% of women are business owners in Malaysia. And out of that, only 10% has got a turnover of $500,000 ringgit and above. That means less than 100. It's about 100,000 US dollars or 125,000, depending on what the exchange rate is. Yeah. So the
They're
rest
very small businesses. Yeah.
very small businesses. So who's going to invest in another, let's say,
No, they can't.
what we call silama, because that's where they are at. They're having stalls where they're selling from cooking from home, but that's what it is. But a lot of these women who are doing very, very well, yes, you're right, they're doing very, very well. Even there are two women who are in the education business as well, but they still play by the men's rules. They pay the teachers very low. They bring in teacher-trained teachers. So the quality of the teaching, because of the information and the knowledge that they have, is very limited. There's so much you can do to impact, right? So we didn't do that, and then we didn't play the game, because what I'm charging, by right, we should have Caucasian teachers. And Asians, they are like, oh, do you have Caucasian teachers, right? But no, I don't have, but I'm giving you engineers. But what I'm charging for my engineers, right, is it falls short of not having, Caucasian teachers. Because, I mean, Asian is not known for education, right? In many ways. Yes, we get Singapore and China and all that, where the results are really amazing, but at the expense of the kids, they're all miserable, they struggle, oh my God, I tell you, the outcomes of many of them, the lack of confidence, the feeling of not being good enough and never be, it's hefty. So the price of it is ridiculous, right? But so at the end of the day, it's still it's the old game. And so that's what I'm struggling with right now. And I can see it as he talks about this, that we want to do the right thing, but then to move forward, it's hard, because you just don't play the game the way, and so on. But we refuse to budge with how we pay our teachers. And so right now, this is the second, one round was through this Crow Howers, right? Crow, number 8 in the world for consulting company. We couldn't get through with that one. And then now we're going through the other route of going SPV and so on. So when people come in, and the pre-series was okay. Series A, Series B route, where they are looking at your numbers by institutional investors, that's where we get stuck again. All because, as we were moving forward as a teacher doing a business, along the way, you get that chicken and egg situation. You either pay a lot to hire the right person, or you kind of have to, wing it. You just have to wing it, right? And so there you have it.
So
anyway,
I hear what you're saying, and so I'm going to summarize it. Here you are paying your teachers more money. They're not Caucasian, but you have qualified people, but they're not Caucasian, but they're qualified, and you're paying them more than the model should do. So your ROI, your rate of return on investment, is lower, because you're because you're paying your teachers more like a capital investment. And so you
Yeah.
don't get the standard model of investing. And as a result, even people who have a lot of affinity towards what you're doing, women investors, educators, if they have a bunch of money, they can't invest with you because you're not meeting the standard. This is an interesting thing. This is what John DeLorean talked about in terms of corporate ethics, because under a certain circumstance, if I'm operating an investment fund and I invest in your operation, which has an ROI of X, and there's another operation that pays too little, has Caucasian teachers who don't know their fanny from hot rocks, but I have a rate of return of X plus 4, I could get sued by my investors because I invested with you instead of with them, because the ROI, because we're only looking at ROI. Somehow you have got to do a net present value evaluation on, and how do you do this, on how you're building your community and the kind of education you're giving your students, which is already integrated into entrepreneurial. How do you do a net present value calculation on that kind of result?
Yeah.
To help, and I will remind you of one thing and just tell a short story. Do you permit me to do that?
Sure.
Okay. The reminder is, remember Henry Ford Sr., the story that we read and what he did, in contradistinction to his son and grandson. And I don't know if you watch the movie Pretty Woman. In the movie Pretty Woman, there's a scene very similar to what you are saying there. Okay. Now, the second story that I'm going to talk is about a company. This is a very, actually, is current story of an Asian company that went international, attracting interested kind of participants, first round, not even a round, people who wanted to venture. And it's a space of education. And really, there was a lot of good energy around, and the company focused on listing on the New York Stock Exchange. And they did so. Let's just say that they successfully listed at a value of 6 times something. And as soon as they listed, the share price plummeted. And they are today fighting legal, filing legal stuff to fight. My opinion is, really, if you've got something specific that requires time to mature, your focus will be to finding people, and that is done privately. Finding people that are in tune with the time frame that is required for you, for your whatever you're doing to blossom. There's time for everything. If you engage into what is so-called funding stuff, what will happen is that the people that are either going to be putting their money, they will be putting it for motivation that are completely out of tune with the directing energies that are carrying your enterprise. And that there will be a mismatch there. It might not work. And thus, you telling us the story of your experience, which is not very much surprising. I'm over. I don't know if I was clear, but
thank you. Actually that's a route, but again, it's not easy. You just got to go look, right? Which we have been looking and we haven't found one, right? There were quite a lot of people were interested, right? But when it comes to the actual job of, making that change in education, we still get judged by the traditional, like parameters, right? And I just want to qualify, I'm not complaining about the Caucasian teachers, nothing like that at all, but it's just that I'm paying my engineers as high as other schools would pay the Caucasian teachers, right? But because my teachers are not Caucasian, and the pricing I'm charging to those who like schools with Caucasian teachers, then my pricing is too high, for non-Caucasian teachers. So it is more that I decided that Malaysian teachers, they should be getting as much, and I brought in, the qualified ones because I wanted them with their knowledge and Asian parents, if you're above average and above average students and above, they're not going to let you go into teaching. They're asking you to go get your degrees first, and then later you can decide to teach, right? So that's where I went to look for them, in all the other faculties and so on. But anyway, I'm just putting it out there that I can see like what Bucky is talking about. Yes, I think there are a lot of people trying to do the right thing as well, but we are really, really up against huge walls and huge yes, like rulings and parameters set in place that make it so difficult.
This is
That's
it's the same thing in America, where our voters don't vote in their best interest. So, people just aren't aware of what their best interests are. I mentioned that John Fullerton guy because his website or his company may have ways to do a net present value evaluation of your entrepreneurial results that you're creating. There might be some formulas he has in his organization. I don't know. Long shot. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Thank you for all that.
Yeah. We have a few more minutes. I don't want to push this too long. We start a little bit late. Whoops, wrong one. That's my thing on John thing. Let's see, we're starting a new page. Maybe it's best we just kind of relax right here and go ahead and close this out today. Julián, you've been here on the call today. So glad to see you again. We always miss you. You were a good reader. I almost called on you to read today. How are you feeling, my man? And what are you taking away? You're going to have to unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Steve. I do remember I was reading the other times, and I am happy to come back. This was refreshing, and every time I am able to get to these calls, I think like, well, why I can't do more of this? Like, it's something really weird because not everyone understands this kind of obsession with these readings, with these talks, and even I was thinking that one of the things that I take away from this is like everyone can open his or her heart in these calls to their own experience, and to see how can we relate to that, and how can even Bucky relate to that. And he's like a kind of mentor for all of us. Like, he's showing us new ways of doing things. So something, this is actually really curious way of learning even. I am taking away that many of the things that we are learning today are going to allow us to find those fundamentals, as Manu was saying. Also, at some point, we should keep an eye on history. We should keep an eye into what we're doing, what we're seeing, because it's going to repeat in some way, and there's going to be an advantage if we are going to make a better way out of this new cycle or this new repetition. I'm also sorry to hear how much you're struggling and with raising capital, because I can see the tension, you know, and I do believe that maybe sometimes, as you were saying to me, that education is about putting these seeds that you cannot see a result like in the short term. It's something that takes time to rise, and maybe it's something that no other industry has seen. I don't know, maybe it's also something that it caught my attention about how you're paying to the people that work for the school, because it is something that no one else is doing. It's like you're doing a really big investment in that one thing that it's not going to again, it's not going to be a return on investment as the traditional businesses, but instead it's going to be something that is going to be retributed in other ways. But if an investor cannot see that, yeah, like we read various examples on Bucky's today, that people is going to find a shorter way. People is going to find a way to trick the mind, is going to find a way to trick the laws, to anything, the economy is the so I think that even with that is worth to try, you know. So yeah, with that, I would like to take it to you. And how do you feel today, and what do you take away?
Yeah, thank you, Julián. Yeah, okay, before I still remember, John, before we go, shall we take a picture here and I'll send it to Dame Wendy?
It's okay, certainly. Tell her that I said hello.
Okay, I'll tell. Can I take a snapshot, everybody? Just a screenshot, quick one.
Sure.
Okay, great. 1, 2, 3. All right, got it. Okay, so right, how I feel. Actually, what we went through today, I guess it kind of helped, because then I know I'm not we're not alone, right? And it's all things kind of stacked against us. However, the guy whom I brought, who is partnering up with me, he knows how the game is played, right? So because he actually wrote out a structure that makes sense to the investors of the traditional investors, people are excited about it. So it's just that on my side, I have to figure out how to pull out the numbers the way they can see it. So like, say, for instance, at first they felt like, you said that you can double or triple or quadruple the revenue in a year, or within a space of 2 years. They say it's too high. But then we've done it before, because people fail to realize the education industry is such that when the student comes in and they like what you're doing, it's like literally you write a contract with them for 10 years. And that 10 years has a value of its own, but the way, but we are not valued in that manner, okay, just because most of them don't look at it that way. And then the other thing, so yes, we are on that route, just that we have to change out the way we do our numbers, and some numbers that we've done before cannot be changed. So we have to tell our story differently. So my people are working with me to try and do that. But there is someone working on this, and he is able to get through to the investors and where he wants to take us, doing the right thing on both sides. He's doing it at the college level. I'm doing it at the K-12 level. With his plans, I know we can get there. But that's the journey. Okay, I just thought I want to put it out there. And the other thing is, if people, they know how little I put in, because I started with my own money, and how we grew, and the revenue we've generated over, it's like crazy, and they still don't get it. I don't understand. I just don't understand, right? It's just that we pump it back in. But it, it's really, really good having you okay, to talk to, and to just, because you get it, you get the issues. And like, if I were to go out there and talk to people about what I just discussed with you, where the financing is concerned and the insurance, they're not going to get it. You know, they can sense that this is the play is against us, but they're not going to get why it's against, you know, the regular people, right? So thank you very, very much. This has been very, very valuable. So over to Joe. How do you feel, and what is your takeaway from the things we kind of ranted on? Yeah.
I feel good. You know, I don't have a lot of takeaways. I appreciate all the work you're doing in education. And I'm gonna definitely check out the links that Steve posted in the chat. And but it's just good to see everyone. It's good to see Julián. It's good to see Anne. Good to see Manu, and John, everybody, Steve. So I don't know if I'd have felt right if I didn't see you. So so it's good. And that's my takeaway, that you know, it's just great to see everyone. So Manu, how you doing, my friend? How you feel? What are you taking away from today?
Yeah, thank you. I feel good. Really here, I mean, I don't know how to express this, but let me put it this way. One thing, when it comes to the player like Anne, the first thing is to know what you're doing. And obviously you know, because you've been doing it. You started, as you say, you started with your own money. And you've been on all this journey. So you know what you're doing and where you're going. But the second thing is also to understand the local paradigm, what is going on around you. So once you understand those two, you can because the power that you have is the power of, you can have a choice. You can choose who to ally with. Because it seems to me that the big problem that a lot of entrepreneurs are having today, and they're having that in a long time, is they go see people in terms of helping to put resource onto what they are doing. And there's a mismatch in the understanding of what is being done, for what purpose is being done, and what is the cycle of that is being done. Because there are many, as you say, many different cycles. Education cycle, you talk about it, is, you know, you sign a contract literally for 10 years, and then it's your word that has a value, an intrinsic value of its own. That goes with the same like banking before. I don't know if you realize it, that your son or your daughter will bank most likely where the parent bank in the old paradigm of banking, where you had a banker, and then you have a bank in the branch and the brand of banking. And that's the way it goes. Another important thing is that a lot of things is embedded in history. And history is so important. And we've seen all the stories. And I will not cease to recommend my favorite books of wisdom, because the Grunch of Giants, if you don't understand it, it is written and published within 2 years at most of Bucky's departing. It is a book of wisdom. And I will tell you, he was 87 when he died. That is the summation and the actualization, bringing it to the day's problem of 87 years, 85 years of experience. And not only of personal experience, but riding on the shoulder. It took us back to the 9th century, was it? When we was talking about Roland and all of these things. So I would recommend this book to everybody. The Richest Man in Babylon, the book of Proverbs in the Bible, In Search of Meaning, Frankl, and at least the Grunch of Giants. Those books, I don't know how you get them, put them at your. And then one that is called, that's this one, is the Calendar of Wisdom. Tolstoy. Really, I would recommend that to everybody, young, old, new, whatever. You must have them. And then you read them. I don't know how many times I've read this book, but every time when we come back, you know, reading even a paragraph, it just takes me to wilderness, to somewhere else. And that somewhere else is always reminding me of something that is of currency today. So that's my biggest takeaway. So I talk to people that are in tune with what you want to do and stick to that. You know, Bucky says he always realized what he wanted to do, but where the results always came at the nick of time. He uses this word so many times. So keep on doing what you are doing. It is for sure going to deliver. If not through you, through those that are going to succeed you, or through those that you're going to inspire. It's such a big enterprise that you are on. And it's basically, you know, one of the arteries of changing the world that we live in today. That is noxious and that is terrible. So the individual revolution is on, and it's many rivulets that make a big stream. That's my takeaway. John Bean, no.
No, I haven't.
John, how do you feel what you take away?
Now that you take, sorry, John, is that I just wanted to mention this book that I don't know if any of you have heard of that now that Manu mentioned it. This True Purpose
Tim
by Kelley. Really inspiring. Maybe a topic for another call, but I can relate to what you were saying, Manu, about knowing what you are going to leave behind. Like there's a message that you leave trace. There's a purpose. There's a way that you blessed someone else. Like there are so many ways to take a look into that. So glad to share about that other time. Now back to you, John. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, can you put the title of that book and the author in the chat, please? Yes.
Sure.
Okay. John, to you.
I'm feeling good. It was a very positive sharing. Still some bad news in there, but it was exciting to hear you, Anne, talking about the challenges, and I've got no doubt you'll deal with them. You've got something very valuable to offer, and the education of our young people is just so critical. There are so many young people, as you say, disillusioned, disheartened. They've been given huge parental expectations, and they're a failure if they don't live up to the parental expectations, and it's a terribly cruel thing to do to young people. But their parents do with the best of intentions. They think that if they don't drive their children and drive them to excel and achieve outstanding results, they won't have a great life, which is not true. So ask somebody like Richard Branson, who was a failure at school. Seems to have done okay since he left school. Yeah, so I feel positive and optimistic and glad to have been able to share. And I'm grateful to Bucky. I mean, 40 plus years ago, he was writing this, and he's provided us with so much food for thought. So let's maintain his optimism and see the world working for everyone. So that's how I feel. That's what I want to say. And so, Julián, have you actually gone? You haven't gone.
You went.
You have.
You went.
I've lost track now.
Steve.
No, I haven't. I already have gone. You can go with Steve.
Did you
Steve?
already share? Did you already share, Julián?
Yeah,
Yes.
he did. He was the
Okay,
first.
good,
He was the first
you
one.
made that
Yeah.
insertion, and yeah,
Yeah.
I started with you. That just goes to show you, this is just such a churning conversation, and
It's
it
okay.
really is a churning conversation. I'm grateful for every one of you that are here. Thank you for your contributions. I'm really excited that I think part of solving a problem is seeing a problem, and reading this book and seeing how persistent the problem has been. You know, I've known about it all these years. In the 60s, I was a guy who played a rock and roll band at a freedom festival, where, you know, Tom Hayden showed up as the Chicago 8, and the Provo boarded up their windows because they were afraid there's going to be a mass riot, because we were all about corporate conscience, right? It's all about coming out of the political moray of craziness that existed in the Democratic National Convention, where they were, I mean, just, which is, you know, which was so far away from what the Constitution and what America is supposed to be about. I was a rock and roll band fronting Tom Hayden's speech, and yet here were all these people in this park. And by the way, it's just here's a side story. The cops came, and they had all their billy clubs, and they had their riot gear with the big shields that you could see through. And, you know, this was back in the 60s, and it's not much different now, except everybody's dressed in black. All the cops are dressed in black because they're all SWAT team guys. Back in the old days, it was just regular cops with blue shirts, light blue shirts, with these shields and billy clubs. And it's so funny, because I was at this concert and I had my 2-year-old son. I actually have a film of him playing drums at this concert. And I was walking around the park, and I go along the park, and there's this big row of cops surrounding the park. And I bumped into a guy from my church, and he was a cop. He was a cop there. And he went, "Steve, is that you?" I said, "Yes, it's you." He says, "How could you bring your kid to a thing like this?" And I said to him, "How can you bring your billy club to a thing like this?" And so that was our little, this is back in 1968, probably 68, whenever the Democratic National Convention was. I think it was in 68 when the Chicago 8 were all arrested and went to prison and all that stuff. But, you know, then we kind of, this is all about corporate conscience, and the institutions are all corrupt. And when that concert was over, I was there taking my stuff down. There was trash everywhere in that park. Everywhere in the park, there was trash. It's like, here are all these people protesting institutions and how the institutions aren't doing so, but nobody took their trash out of the freaking park. It's like they expected somebody to go into the park and pull the trash out for them. Well, if an institution is not going to do that, then we got to do it ourselves. And that's the problem. You know, that's the big problem. So I just love each of you on the call and what you're contributing in your space. The fact that you have and you just met somebody that's a friend, that's a longtime friend of John's, is just freaking miracle. There are miracles all over happening, and I think one of the miracles in my life is this phone call. So thank you all for being here. Okay.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Thank you.
Lucky we started going out early, because everyone took their time. Thank you very much for your heartfelt comment.
Yeah, I wanted
Thank you.
to take a short celebration. On Monday, I'm going to start a new job, so pretty excited.
Congratulations. Oh, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, Julián. Good for you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
that's fantastic.
can
What
share
are you
more
going to be
about
doing?
Tell me.
What will you be doing? Or
I'll be product strategy consultant for a technology consultant.
oh,
It's
that's
a
fantastic.
multinational.
Wow.
It's
Is it the UK one or the other one?
the UK. The UK.
That's fantastic. So you're going to do a lot of travel, or?
No, it's a multinational, so they are having a team in Colombia. So
Okay.
that's what I am looking for right now to set up with the team here in Colombia, but all of the clients for that company is from the US and from Europe. So I'm going to keep relating with people from different time zones, from Argentina. Yeah, Argentina, Colombia, those are the two Latin American right now.
Well, make sure you get their intellectual capital. Take learn as much as you can.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Really excited. Thank you guys for sharing those celebrations, those congratulations.
That's awesome, man.
All right. Thank you. Have a
Thanks
good
for sharing.
Sunday. Good Saturday night. Already
Take care.
here. So bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.